Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we are rolling. It is Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. Except I forced us to skip last week. And so, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Good. Did you enjoy having the week off, man?
Mm,
I mean, you were
kind
ready
of.
to roll.
Yeah, I was ready to roll, ready to, change my picks on the fly. I think that's why you wanted to cancel last week because you're afraid I was going to change my picks on the fly and then
Ruined
overtake.
my commanding lead.
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. No, hey, it's all good, man. I'm back and I'm ready to roll tonight. So it is episode 127 of Gridiron Grinder. We're gonna kick things off with Name That Stadium like we always do. Then we're gonna hit the news from this past week, which will really be kind of like the past 2 weeks as much as we can fill in anyhow. After that, we'll hit our Week 18 power rankings and game picks. Shed a little tear from my eye that this is already the last week of the regular season. And then last but not least, we'll do our question of the week. And so, real quick before we jump into Name That Stadium, just some quick housekeeping items for anybody who's new to the show. We do bookmark everything in the description of the video. That way, if you don't want to sit around and watch the full hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it ends up being, you can skip around and get to whatever strikes your fancy. Aside from that, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We do this stuff every week, minus last week. And so, James, why don't you take it over with Name That Stadium, man?
All right. So this is where I travel around to the various games, or not various games, generally a stadium that's hosting a game during the regular season, various stadiums in the NFL. And if you guess, you're the first one to guess in the comments and you get it right, we'll give you an extra special shout out the following week. Heck, we'll probably even give you just a regular shout out if you guess and you get it wrong. But 2 weeks ago, when last time we did this, I was in Pittsburgh for
Okay.
the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, the Raiders Steelers game. On was it Christmas Eve that they played? So that's kind of my reasoning for that game. Which heck, it was a heck of an interesting game when it came down to it. So looks like it was a good pick by me.
Good choice. Yes, you usually make good choices and you have good inspiration. And so
Yeah,
you're good there?
try to. I try to have some sort of inspiration.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Well, hey, if you're good there, we can shift it over and we can do our recap of the past week, which we'll kind of do the past couple weeks. And so, James, just looking back at the week 16 and week 17 matchups, were there any games that stood out to you as being surprising? I mean, I know the big one obviously was Cincy Buffalo and the DeMar Hamlin thing and that getting postponed and now uh, just, I guess, I don't know what you call it. They're not going to reschedule it, but you know,
Canceled.
thank you, canceled. So I guess, for the games that were completed, were any of the outcomes surprising for you? I mean, I know Lions losing to freaking Carolina the way they did, that sucked. I thought they were at least going to be close. I thought we'd win it,
Hmm.
but geez, I mean, they beat
I
us pretty good.
so from week 16, I think like the biggest surprise was how thoroughly dominant the Rams looked against the Broncos.
Yeah, 51 points. Holy
Yeah.
cow, man.
So I mean that was a shocker to me. Uh, Last week, I don't. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, this
I don't
past
think there
week,
was really.
I think, Green Bay just destroying Minnesota, I mean, I would have been okay with Green Bay winning. I just didn't think that they would have just embarrassed them like that. 41-17 was, like Minnesota never had a chance, man.
Yeah, that one, and I think kind of how close the Chiefs Broncos game was.
Yeah, that was a shock. Where did Denver come from all of a sudden?
Yeah, but
Uh,
it can't put up what 10 points against the Rams, 14 points against the Rams, and then you put up 24 against the Chiefs. Is like, and you give up 51 to Baker Mayfield, and Mahomes only gets 27.
yeah, yeah. And and they're talking about however you say the defensive coordinator's name, Ajiro or whatever, that he's on the list for the head coaching candidates. And so, despite Hackett and whoever else being totally dysfunctional, apparently they liked that guy. And so, maybe it's lip service. I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, I told you a long time ago, I'd love to see it be Sean Payton, but I know there's strings attached because of
Mm-hmm.
him being under contract with New Orleans, which New Orleans kind of surprised me this past week. I know Philly was still playing with Gardner Minshew, but even then, the game was in Philly, and New Orleans has just been so bad this year. I thought Philly would have still found a way to win that game, especially because, now week 18, it's coming down to the wire for them. They've got to win this game to maintain
Mm-hmm.
that number one seed. And so, that I don't know. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. That's the NFL, any given Sunday, all that kind of jazz. So,
To clarify, they got to win that game, or they need some help from some other teams.
thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Because if, like, hypothetically, if Dallas loses and they keep the number one seed because they have the tiebreaker over Minnesota, and Minnesota's 12-4 and Philly is 13-3. Yeah. So if Dallas loses, that's the key.
Okay.
San Francisco maybe. What is San Francisco? They're 12-4, 13-4. San Francisco might win the tiebreaker there. I'm not certain, but I think San Francisco is only vying for a number 2 seed now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the challenge is Dallas is playing Washington, and so a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
just kind of think that that's going to be a shoe-in since Washington is now going with Sam Howell at quarterback is what it looks like for this final week.
Yeah, well, it's like Arizona started David Blau in
Yep.
week 17,
And it worked. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
not quite.
it worked. I would say for him, because he was the practice squad for the Lions, wanted to have a chance to start somewhere. Went over to Minnesota, didn't get it there. Finally went over to Arizona, and what do you know? He gets a chance to start a game, and he didn't play that bad himself, but yeah, it didn't work for the team. That's the
Well, no, he had
appropriate.
a pretty good game. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm
completion
saying. He
percentage
had a good game. Yeah.
was a little lower, but it was 24. He was 24 for 40, 222 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
So, I mean, they still put up 19 points.
Yeah. No, I think that's great for a guy that was, floating around practice squads, man.
And Stidham and that was that game. I forgot about that game. The Raiders and the 49ers with Jared Stidham starting, and how the Raiders were like, basically the 49ers needed a last second field goal to win or overtime. Yeah, last second field goal to tie the game and then overtime to win the game.
Yeah, and I don't think we talked about Derek Carr being benched
No, we
because
didn't,
we missed
because it
last
was
week. And so,
exactly.
you want to shed some light on that and how Stidham got the start there?
So basically, the Raiders. It looks like the Raiders are moving on from Carr. If he got hurt, his $40 million would have had $40 million guarantees kick in immedially, and right now they don't kick in until it's like 2 or 3 days after the Super Bowl. So he only has like a $5 million guarantee remaining that it hasn't kicked in. So they benched him and then sent him home, like stay in bubble wrap, don't get hurt, because we don't want your money guaranteed. Which I think is, after the performance in week 16, I think it was coming. The benching was coming. I was surprised that they basically they're saying they're moved on from him.
Yeah. Yeah, now they're saying they're going to try to trade him,
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody will take him in a trade, that's the problem. Kind of a lot of money for a guy that never seems to get over the hump, but it's not a bad strategy to try. I think teams know, well, now they're kind of desperate to get rid of him, so they're not going to get a good deal.
Yeah,
So,
well, but that's the thing. Like, how can they trade him? Because the guarantees will kick in 2 days or 3 days after the Super Bowl, and you can't trade him till like March 15th. So the trade can't become official to March 15th. So then the team would be on the hook for that guaranteed 40 million, and the team would just, if I was a team, I'd just back out of the fucking trade and be like, you
yeah.
know what? Never mind. I changed my mind. Not sign the paperwork, not file the paperwork, and you know what? Fuck you, Raiders. But
Uh, yeah, it's a complicated situation, meaning likely he's getting released.
yeah, exactly.
All right, and we'll talk more about him later on. I'll just come out with it, James. That's going to be question of the week. I want to come back and talk about what's in store for Derek Carr from here. Um, all right, so aside from all that, I'll just kind of do a quick update on some of the injuries that have been hanging out there, and some of these were lingering even before we missed this past week. Um,
Hmm.
Lamar Jackson still out. Looks like he'll be out until the playoffs. Sounds like I think their offensive coordinator made comments about, expecting him to play in the playoffs. And so, that I guess is encouraging. Jalen Hurts, I heard, is on track to play this week, which, like we talked about, could be huge for them. Debo Samuel, he's been out. He is expected to stay out until the playoffs. Not that they need him anyhow. They just keep rolling with Mr. Irrelevant. Um, and then I saw Justin Fields got ruled out with a hip
Hmm.
injury. That's one where they were talking about him playing because they wanted to keep seeing what they got in him, keep getting him work, and all that kind of jazz. I told you before we missed this past week that I thought it was time to shut him down just because you don't want a Kyler Murray like injury and then
Hmm.
not even have him for next year. But hey, the hip thing happened, and so he's going to be out anyhow. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
the thing with Fields is I thought what they would do was they would play him to get the record and
okay.
then sit him because he was only like 50 some yards away from the QB rushing record. Uh,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he was on a tear. Yeah, I mean, that's almost like a situation where you're like, hey, you know, do you want to play or not? Because I
mhm.
don't know, man, it's tough because it's, I don't know. I still think you're looking at the future, but yeah, that complicates it, I guess.
Yeah, it was the record was 12:06 and he had there's two, what was his blah, 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 blah. He was 64 yards shy.
Okay. Yeah,
So
just play the Lions one more time.
yeah, really. Although they did a pretty good job not letting them run too much all over them in that game.
Well, didn't he have like some like 60-yard run early in the game?
Yeah, but I think that was like
All
all
right.
his
Yeah,
rushing.
so they
Like
contained
the
him after that. Okay, I
yeah
got you.
the first game he had what like 150 yards
Yeah,
or
hey,
something absurd.
yeah, yeah, more reason that we need to be thinking double down on defense. You know, I've seen a lot of guys mocking us, C.J. Stroud lately, and I'm not like totally opposed to it, because it's when you pick that high, thanks to the Rams, there's a lot of logic and a lot of pressure to go quarterback, but
Oh, never
um,
mind. He had 132 yards rushing in this last game.
okay, hey, either way, no biggie. But yeah, so other than all that, James, I'll just tell you real quick. J.J. Watt, I'm sure you saw it. Others may have not. He has announced his retirement. He's going to finish out the season. Not at all the way he expected it to go when he went from Houston to Arizona a few years back. Thought he was going to be moving to a potential championship kind of caliber team, and they never really got close to that. But the dude's had a heck of a career. I still love that he's got some, Central Michigan roots, even though he transferred to Wisconsin. And hey, he's a father now, I believe, married with a kid, and so time to move on to the next chapter of life, man.
Hmm. And then I'm looking for it. You heard about Jadeveon Clowney, right?
Uh, I hate talking about Jadeveon Clowney, but I heard he was crying about something, and he's making comments that he's like 95% not going to be with the Browns next year or whatever. And I don't know, dude. He in my opinion is like a colossal underperformer for like a number one overall pick that just like continues to get these chances and never really makes good on it. So I don't know. And maybe that's my fault for putting that kind of like pressure on him, but it just I don't know. I think I'd be more comfortable if it was different somehow.
So he was sent home from practice today.
Okay.
Basically, with all like the shit he was talking, and then Miles Garrett came out and said, "We want people that want to be here, not hostage. We want volunteers, not hostages."
Gotcha. Okay.
So basically he's done. But yeah, I agree with you. I just thought it was interesting, like how how it happened, like with him, like his exit,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, dude. He just seems like a bad seed in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
from what I see, it just seems like he never puts out the production on the field. Teams are just like enamored that he was like such a high draft pick that they keep trying him. And it just never works. It's like I mean, by now we should know that, if you're gonna bring him in, maybe bring him in on a modest deal and have him be like a rotational guy where you're just telling him like nothing's given, dude. You want to like work your butt off and get it, okay. But if not, we got other guys that we're gonna play too because we got to get the production's the bottom line. So
Yeah.
all right, so James, let's go over and talk about the Buffalo Cincinnati situation. I'll start just by, my update on Damar Hamlin. I saw that, and I'm just like saying most people I'm sure know about this, but he took a hit in the first quarter, and it really didn't even look that bad of a hit. It was just like the way he got hit. He went down, he got up, took a step, and then immediately went back down. Went into cardiac arrest. They had to perform CPR on him on the field. I think they were trying to do CPR for like 10 plus minutes before
Hmm.
they got him stable enough to put in an ambulance, take to the hospital. He was on a ventilator for a couple days, just came off it, I think, yesterday.
Overnight,
I
yeah.
heard that he was able to like FaceTime with some teammates. He said something like, "Love you guys," and they got to talk to him, and so some positive developments there. Very scary situation. Obviously, everybody's hoping the best for this guy. Um, you know, you had sent me something earlier about how this affects the playoff picture now, and so if that's something maybe you can shed some light on, and if there's anything else you want to say about Damar Hamlin, obviously jump in and you know,
Yeah. So the theory that I've heard with what happened, it was a run of the mill hit. So there's, and I forget the name, it was like Cordo Cardis or something, some weird name like that, where at the peak of your T wave, if you have an impact on your chest, and it's very rare that this happens, if you have an impact over your heart at the peak of your T wave of your heartbeat, it can cause cardiac arrest. And it most commonly happens with like projectiles, like baseball, stuff like that. But it's very rare, like 3 instances of it happening a year. But it was kudos to the Bills staff who basically, from what I read about it, within a minute of him having the cardiac arrest, they were performing CPR on him.
oh, that's good.
So and all the stuff, and all the reporting is that his there's there seems to be no neurological effects from it.
That'd be huge.
And he did FaceTime with teammates, but then he talked with teammates, and then he FaceTimed into a team meeting with the entire team.
Okay.
Today. So I mean, it's huge news, and you know, it's a tragic thing that happened. But I think the league's response to it, canceling the game, yes, I understand that. The league changed how the playoffs are going to work. And first of all, it's fucking bullshit.
Okay.
So the reason from the league on why they changed how the playoffs are going to work this year, just for starters, is, let me find the exact quote. Where is it? Okay, here's the quote. The page refreshes. Okay. They said that it was that you had a circumstance, it wasn't necessarily captured in the rules. We don't capture everything in every rule and every policy manual. And sometimes when you face situations, you have to try to make adjustments, and this was one of those adjustments. Okay, bullshit, because it is captured in the fucking NFL policy manual and the league rules, and reading directly from the rules. So, if a game, according to the NFL rulebook on competitive policy for canceled games, if a game is canceled, a team standing in its division or in its conference shall be determined on the basis of its final record. When necessary, playoff tiebreakers shall be calculated according to per game average for all teams. And then when you get to schedule and site, each season, the pairings and sites of the conference championship games will be determined as follows. Winners of the divisional playoff games will be the 4 participants. The home team in a conference championship game will be the division champion that was seeded highest in the playoffs. Unless 2 wildcard teams are in a conference championship game, in which wildcard team is seeded highest, it will be the home team. So right there, that captures what they're doing. But the issue isn't as much I have with them not following the rules. So they broke out 4 scenarios. If Baltimore beats Cincinnati this week, they'll flip a coin to determine who the home team is. So there's 3 scenarios for the AFC Championship game that will lead to a neutral site. One is if both Buffalo and Kansas City win or tie, and Kansas City and Buffalo are the conference championship game, then they'll move it to a neutral site. Scenario 2 is if Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati all lose, then it will be moved to a neutral site if Buffalo and Kansas City are playing the championship game. Now, scenario 3 is if Buffalo and Kansas City lose and Cincinnati wins, then either Cincinnati or Buffalo and Kansas City make it to the conference championship game. They'll be moved to a neutral site.
It's so complicated, man.
Here's the issue. I think not the canceling of the game affects the bye. And I ran through the scenarios.
Yeah.
So if Buffalo and Kansas City win, if Buffalo beat Cincinnati, both Kansas City and Buffalo would be 14-3. Buffalo would be the number 1 seed. If for scenario 2, if Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati lose, both teams, Buffalo and Kansas City, would be 13-4. Buffalo would be the number 1 seed, having the bye. In scenario 3, if Buffalo and Kansas City lose and Cincinnati wins, if you assume Buffalo beats Cincinnati, then Buffalo would have been the number 1 seed. If you assume that Cincinnati beat Buffalo, then Cincinnati would be the number 1 seed. So therefore, Buffalo and Cincinnati are getting forced to play an extra playoff game because of this determination in the rules. and which is where I think it's wildly unfair to give Kansas City a bye that they didn't necessarily earn,
Yeah,
assuming that both Buffalo and Kansas City win or both Buffalo and Kansas City lose, then Buffalo would have had potential to be the number one seed. I understand why they're moving it to the neutral site, but because of the optics for that. So for the Baltimore Cincinnati game, if Baltimore beats Cincinnati, Cincinnati is still the AFC North champs, and they're clearly not following their rules by determining the AFC North champs as Cincinnati, but then potentially giving them a harder schedule and a potential road playoff game.
I gotcha.
So this is assuming that Baltimore and Cincinnati are paired up, which if the Chargers win and Baltimore wins, then that's who will play in the first round.
Okay.
Is Baltimore and Cincinnati.
Yeah, so that's obviously way complicated, and it's going to take somebody with an advanced degree to understand it. uh, but the thing that I was hearing the other day that I have not heard since, because they've obviously shifted gears here, was that, with COVID over the last 2 years, there was already something in writing about how the games would be rescheduled if
Mm-hmm.
there were these cancellations or postponements leading into the playoffs because of COVID. And so, why isn't the league just using those protocols basically for this, saying, hey, it's a similar kind of fluke? I don't know fluke, maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean? That it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, hey, we have some kind of procedure for how to deal with these sort of emergencies where you got to be flexible like this. Um, and then it seems like it just went cold immediately, and nobody talked about it other than the other day. So
Yeah. So I think with that there was a lot of talk about. So what the initial talk was that I was hearing was possibly having the Cincinnati Buffalo game in some sort of week, quote unquote 19, where you have the NFC playoff games and the Cincinnati Buffalo game the first weekend of the playoffs, have the AFC playoff games the next week, and then just and get rid of the week between the Super Bowl and the conference championship games. Then there was talk about adding an eighth team to the playoffs.
Yep, I remember hearing that. Yep.
There was also talk about moving the Cincinnati Buffalo game to week 19 and having that be the only game played. Ultimately, the reason they decided to cancel the game was because while it would canceling the game would, or the game itself would potentially affect playoff seeding, it wouldn't affect which teams made the playoffs.
Okay.
And they weighed that and decided they didn't want to have everyone change their playoff schedule, and they wanted everyone to know what they had to have, what the potentials were going into week 18, so they could plan accordingly. I think they put the coin flip in there to make Cincinnati have a desire to play for something. I think both Buffalo and Cincinnati didn't want to complete the game. And
no way, man. Why would you want to play that game?
Yeah. So I think it's unfortunate that it happened. I think it's unfair on how they determined everything. But especially seeing as though both Cincinnati and Buffalo would have had the tiebreaker over Kansas City because both teams beat Kansas City, and then the winner of that game would have had the tiebreaker over the other. Yeah. So it's like they inadvertently are causing a competitive imbalance by canceling the game but I understand, and I believe they had to cancel the game.
I gotcha.
There's no way you could go, because like there was talk, oh, well, maybe they play it on Tuesday, but they're not going to play the game until they get a status of Damar Hamlin, and like there's just you have mentally you have to
Yeah.
sort
I
of you have to recuperate from something like that. There was I of the whole thing, I applaud not only the medical staff for the Bills, but both Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott for what happened, because there was talk and the league pushed back on this, but and ESPN basically is saying that that's what the league told us. That's why we reported it, and I believe ESPN because they reported this over the air, and if it was inaccurate, wouldn't the league call ESPN and say, because the league's watching the game, obviously, when they said no, that's not the plan, but it was, well, they now have 5 minutes to warm up and we're going to start again.
Okay.
And so when Taylor and McDermott met on the sideline, the first thing McDermott said to Taylor, according to Zach Taylor, is, I need to be at the hospital with Damar. I can't be coaching this game. And that's like, right there, that's rare to see in the NFL.
Yeah.
If it
Good
was
leadership. Yep.
yeah, if it was Belichick said, yeah, move his body over and let's continue and win the game. It's, ironically, this isn't the first time somebody's had a heart attack on the field. Back in like 1972, and there was a Lion that had it at Tiger Stadium.
Okay.
They were a guy who was running down the sideline and had a pulmonary embolism and and died on the field while he was running. And basically, they put his body on a gurney, took it off the field, and started play within 10 minutes.
Jeez.
And I forget the guy's name. I wish I could remember the guy's name. But it was like, and then the free press, like, not the free press, or the news, I think it was the free press, because the picture I saw, you could see the guy laying on the field dead, and the picture was printed in the newspaper.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
So, and that person happened to also be 24 years old.
Okay. Coincidence.
Yeah.
All right, man. Crazy stuff. Obviously, we're all wishing the best for this guy, and nobody wants to see this kind of thing happening. Any kind of wrap up on that, or are you ready to move it on over to the power rankings?
So the thing I like about it is this weekend in all the games, they're doing various things to
Like a tribute?
various tributes. Like the Bills will be wearing a three like patch with the number 3. Some teams are painting the 3s on the field blue.
Okay.
With a blue bat pattern, like the buffalo color, and wearing like pregame shirts, like "Love for Damar" 3 or something like that, or pregame moments of support. There's various ways that each team is doing it a little bit differently, but so
I gotcha.
A little happy note to end this weird conversation.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Okay, let's move over and let's get to our Week 18 power rankings. And so, James, you probably saw I totally shifted my approach this past week when I sent them to you, but I'm sticking with that approach for this week. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's just my twist on how I'm going to be doing my power rankings for, this final week here. But, whenever you're ready, man, why don't you give me your 1 through 5?
So 1 through 5, for me, it's basically the same teams. I have Cincinnati at 1. I guess technically they didn't play this past week, so it's kind of like a bye moment, and so I left them at 1. I actually moved Buffalo up to number 2, one spot. The reason for this was more, even though I would consider their games like a bye, um, I didn't like how Kansas City looked against Denver.
Yeah.
So I dropped Kansas City down one spot to number 3. And then number 4 and number 5, San Francisco and Dallas, they stayed the same. I think I moved them. No, they've been the same for. I moved them up one spot from last week when Philadelphia lost. I dropped Philadelphia to 6,
Okay.
which we didn't go over, but so they stayed the same from what I had last week.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Yeah, on my side here, and so basically the way that I did this, I know our viewers can't see this because every time I share my screen, it messes up our overlay and all that jazz. But I have color coded my power rankings, where basically I'm putting everybody that's in the playoffs in green at the top, their own tier. Anybody who is on the bubble is in black in the middle, and then everybody who's eliminated is in red at the bottom. And so I've basically taken those 3 tiers and I've organized the teams by who I believe is the best among their tier. And so, with that being the case, my top 5, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo, which really didn't change. I kind of left it open-ended, waiting to see what was going to happen with that Cincinnati Buffalo game. After that, I got San Francisco. I moved them up. Just impressed that they keep getting it done with a quarterback 3. And it's not all Brock Purdy. I mean, they're getting really just great production out of everybody. Everybody's chipping in. Just goes to show how deep that team is with talent and how good their coaching staff is. Really pumped up about them. I'm hoping they keep that momentum going in the playoffs. And then at 5, I've got Philly. I dropped them down. I was hoping they'd do better with Minshew. Minshew mania a few years ago. I was loving that guy. Uh, just a bummer to see them on a slide with Minshew. I thought they would
Mm-hmm.
have at least gotten one of these last 2 games, and they didn't. And so I pushed them down. I still think playoff time, if Hurts is healthy, um, they still have a strong chance of being a good playoff team, even though, like I've mentioned throughout the year, I am wondering if they've been battle tested enough, because it seems like they did really pull a pretty weak schedule at the end of the day when you look at it. But, broken record with that. Back to you at 6 through 10, man.
All right, so this is kind of where I had a lot of shakeup. My number 6 team is the Chargers. I moved them up one spot from the last time. It's a couple more than one spot from last time, so it's 2 spots from the last time we talked, because the Chargers, they just keep getting it done. They looked fairly healthy. They're looking fairly healthy, and they clinched the playoffs. They're firmly the number 5 seed in the AFC, assuming we're not firmly, but they have the inside track to it. I think they're probably right around the 4th team with Super Bowl odds for the NFC or AFC, in my opinion. So I have them at 6. Jacksonville. Last week, Jacksonville took a huge jump for me. I moved them up 5 spots, and then I moved them up another 3 spots this week.
Nice.
They were purely dominated against Houston. The week before, they were played decently against the Jets and actually eliminated them from the playoffs. They won 19-3, so they basically shut the Jets out. And they're rolling, and I think they have the inside track to winning that division. I said, like, week 6, week 7, that I thought they were the favorites to win the division, and it seems to be coming true. Number 8, I have Philadelphia. I dropped them 2 spots. I really wanted to drop them more, but they beat Detroit. And yeah, it was the first game of the season. And yeah, you could say Detroit lost to Carolina, so why are they still at number 9? I didn't know what to do with them last week.
Yeah.
with the Lions. I absolutely didn't know what to do with them, so I left them at 9. And then they thoroughly kicked the shit out of Chicago. So even though it was just Chicago, they just beat Minnesota, who I moved down to number 10, dropped Minnesota 2 spots. So they just frustrate me, the Lions.
It's all good, man.
They lost to fucking Sam Darnold again.
Yeah, that was a bummer, man. The first game Darnold ever played beat us at Ford Field. That was like the start of the Matt Patricia coup d'etat. It was like all the players going into the first game talking about how much they hated him, and right off the bat we lose. It just was like I was screaming, "Fire the guy!" right there.
Mm-hmm.
He had all that, the sexual assault or the rape accusations or whatever they were from years ago. I mean, there were so many things going on. It was just like, man, it's just tainted from the get go. Get rid of the guy, start over right now. And instead, they
Mm-hmm.
kept riding it out like idiots. But that's okay. We got Dan Campbell. I'm feeling good about him. Yeah, in Dan we trust. I believe I have a T-shirt that says that now. So yeah. All right. So James, at 6, I got the Chargers. I'm with you, man. I was worried that these guys weren't going to make it into the playoff picture with
Mm-hmm.
all the injuries they had early in the season. And so it's nice to see them get in. And I think they are absolutely a threat against any team in the playoffs. Herbert is he's one of those rare quarterbacks, man. He leads his receivers well. He has amazing poise. They got Eckler is a beast in the backfield, like the little Swiss Army knife does whatever you need. And then the defense, man, they've been streaky, but when they're on, they're freaking good. I mean, barring something crazy, it looks like Bosa's going to be there for the playoffs. So that's huge for them, man.
Mm-hmm.
At 7, I got Dallas, and I like Dallas. Just not sure I can put them above Philly right now. It's tough because, we've talked a lot about the Dak situation and how that changes this team, and I've also not been as sold on the defense in recent weeks, and so it's all good. I think they're a good team. They just need to prove some stuff to me going into the playoffs. Minnesota, I put them 1 spot above the Giants purely because they beat the Giants. And then at 10, I got Baltimore because the Giants beat Baltimore. And so I thought that was a nice little ding, ding, doon, whatever, however you want to do it. And honestly, with Lamar being out, I think Baltimore's been sliding. And even before he went out, they were kind of looking sketchy. So I just kind of thought out of like the rounding out of the top 10, put them at the bottom. The Giants, man, they were hot early. They got a little bit cold there, and now they're heating up again to finish the year, which is nice. And so I feel good about that. Back to you at 11, man.
All right, so 11 and 12, um, I have Baltimore and Cleveland, and I started to flip them, and then I looked at it and you're right, the Giants did beat Baltimore, which I had forgotten about. But what it boiled down to is I thought that the loss to the Giants was kind of flukish.
Yeah.
Baltimore just beat Cleveland. I think Cleveland's better than the Giants. So, and Baltimore, like I said, just beat Cleveland. So I went Baltimore, Cleveland, the Giants.
There's so many ways you can slice and dice it, man.
Yeah, and the Giants ended up moving up 3 spots with the win. And I know it was just against Indy, but it's kind of also like a couple teams there lost. So and Giants ended up moving up 3 spots to 13. New Orleans, after beating Philly, moved up 3 spots to 14. Um, and then Tennessee, after losing to Dallas, I dropped 2 spots to 15. And I have concerns about Tennessee. I have extreme concerns about Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's just I couldn't move them much further down because of how the board kind of played out here.
Yeah, and I mean I'm trying to remember how this worked, but they completely bypassed Malik Willis and went with a different starting quarterback, right? Because Tannehill's out.
Yeah.
And
I
so
forget who the
basically there
start.
was like no confidence in Malik Willis. Which, I mean, hey, there was a lot of hype with him going into the draft. He obviously slid down the draft board. Tennessee took him with the intentions of it being a project. And so, if the guy's not ready, the guy's not ready. I don't want to knock him for that. It just kind of seemed like, man, I don't know. I would almost say let's see what the guy has because they're going to have to make some decisions on Tannehill and where it's going. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, they went with Josh Dobbs, who
Yeah,
didn't
who was
they,
on the Lions practice squad? They
yeah, they
signed him
signed
away
him
from us,
off
man.
the Lions practice squad and started him.
Yeah, yeah, and he played okay from what I heard. So good for him. Just a
Yeah, two.
shock that it worked out that way with Malik Willis and so.
Yeah. I mean, he his QBR was 32.3, so I don't know
Well,
how
maybe I
how
heard
well.
just the highlights.
So his stats, like reading his stats, 20 for 39, 232 yards, one touchdown, and one interception doesn't sound that bad. But his rating was 67.5, QBR was 32.3. I there's a little bit more into the numbers there.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm suspect on Tennessee as well. And so, James, my 11 through 15, I've got Tampa Bay at 11. I moved them up 9 spots. Didn't want to do it, but under my new system, they're in the playoff picture, or they're in the playoffs, not just in the picture. And so this had to put them in that top tier. And this is where it gets weird because mine, it's like, I definitely feel like teams below them in the power rankings are better than them. It's just that, for whatever rhyme or reason, some teams didn't make the playoffs. Different schedules, different injuries, and things throughout the season, and whatever the case may be. Tampa Bay got in, so they're at the very bottom of that top tier for me. At 12, I've got the Dolphins. I didn't want to like totally smoke them because they were playing their QB3 this past week against Patriots. Teddy Bridgewater went down early, and Tua was ruled out before the game even was played. But so kind of like in this next tier now, I've got Miami at the top, and I am a little bit suspect on Miami because going back a number of weeks, you remember Tua had two really nasty games back to back. Seemed
Hmm.
like he got back on track, and then he got hurt again. And so I'm a little bit worried about what's going on in Miami, but I got him at 12 for now.
That was
13.
that was the thing. It was the Week 16 game was Green Bay Miami, wasn't it?
I'd have to double check, but
Because I think that's right.
I can just take a peek real quick. 16
Yeah, it was
was
Green Bay Miami, and he got
okay.
a concussion in week 16. And when Tua, his decline, his first half stats were fine, and then they kind of watching film pinpointed the point where he probably got the concussion, which was his head was slammed off the turf, and I forget his stats after that. That's when he threw like the three interceptions right
Okay.
back to back. It was after the concussion. Then the next day, he was McDaniel had concerns about something Tua was doing, and said go see the doctor, and it turned out he had a concussion.
Jeez. Yeah, that guy, man, it's a totally different situation than DeMar Hamlin, for
Uh-huh.
sure. But it's like it's a brain issue, it's just a lot has happened with him this year. I'm worried about that guy. All right, so 13, I got the Lions. 14, I got the Packers. 15, I got the Jaguars. And that was just kind of in the order of, the Lions getting a piece of the Packers earlier in the year, also getting a piece of the Jaguars a couple weeks ago. Green Bay, I put them above Jacksonville. I'm not entirely sure why I did it that way. I think it might have been a little bit of a coin toss, but both of these teams have definitely been on the rise lately, which earlier in the year was not like what we were expecting from either of them. Green Bay was hard disappointing. Jacksonville was just rebuilding, but it is what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
back to you at 16, man.
All right, 16. I have Miami. I dropped them 2 spots. they're kind of just. I think Miami's done for this year. I think I'm not even certain if Bridgewater's starting. The good news from Bridgewater's injury is they thought he broke his finger on his throwing hand, but he only dislocated it.
Okay.
So it depends on if he can grip the ball, whatever, to play this week. 17, I have the Jets. They also dropped two spots. They were embarrassed by Seattle.
Yeah. They've got a quarterback problem.
Actually, I messed that up there. Wow. So I dropped them 3 spots.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
moved Seattle
You meant to
one
flip
spot.
those guys, yeah.
Yeah, I meant to flip those guys, and I just. So yeah,
It's all good.
I Seattle at 17. They moved up 2 spots because more or less a lot of it had to do with the win against the Jets, and they kind of annihilated them. I dropped the Jets down 3 spots to 18 after losing to Seattle, partially because of the fact that they lost to Seattle, so they should be below them. Pittsburgh moved them up to 1 spot at 19. They beat Baltimore. They're currently 8-8, and somehow, some way, Mike Tomlin has a chance to figure out how to be above 500, and I don't know how the fuck he does it.
He's just phenomenal, man. It blows my mind sometimes.
And then 20, I have Atlanta. I moved them up 1 spot. It's more because Washington lost than Atlanta beating Arizona. I mean, like I said, David Ballot was starting for Arizona.
Yeah.
And,
what can you do?
Atlanta barely won.
So, did you hear about Tomlin at the end of that game when Pickett had that like comeback drive? I guess like they caught him on the side of the field mouthing Kenny fucking Pickett. He was like pumped
Oh,
up,
I
and it
didn't
was,
hear that.
oh yeah, dude, it was just like it was cool because it's like obviously he's loving the progression with Kenny Pickett,
Mm-hmm.
and so and who wouldn't? So
Well,
that's exciting.
I was telling you going into the draft that if of all the quarterbacks in the draft, Kenny Pickett is ready now to start.
He looked good coming out. I know it was a limited sample size. Questions on the hand size, all that kind of garbage, and the arm strength or whatever. But the dude looked like he was lightning quick with making his reads,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like he knew exactly where to put the ball and when. And so yeah, I mean, hopefully he stays on this trajectory because he could be a good one.
Yeah.
All right, so for me, James, I've got the Patriots at 16. I moved them up a spot, but I didn't want to go crazy because they barely beat the Dolphins with a QB3. I've got the Steelers at 17. Really happy to see them progressing here, and hopefully they finish above 500. 18, I've got the Seahawks, and then 19, I've got the Titans. They're my last team in this middle tier, and it's really only because they're still in the playoff picture somehow. Um, if that weren't the case, I would have had them lower on my board because at 20, that starts the final tier, which is the eliminated teams. And I've got Carolina at the top of my eliminated group. So back to you at 21, homie.
All right, 21. I have Washington. I dropped them 3 spots. They lost to Cleveland. They got embarrassed by Cleveland of all teams.
Yeah,
This
man, I
year.
really thought they were going to win that game.
Mm-hmm. Me, I know what you mean. Um,
In crazy, the Heineke Wentz thing. It's like, geez, man. It just like there was so many weeks that they were pumping up Heineke and talking about how the
mhm.
team was rallying behind him, and then I get it, he had a bad game, and it just was like, really, you're gonna switch back to Wentz that fast? Ooh,
Yeah, and the interesting thing about it is Rivera didn't even understand that if they lost to Cleveland and Green Bay won, they would be eliminated from the playoffs.
yeah, that's not good, man.
22, I have Green Bay. I moved them up 4 spots. They're a playoff contender, but they're playing better. They annihilated Minnesota, but I'm not going to get too excited about them.
No.
Maybe if they make the playoffs, I'll move them up higher. 23, same thing. New England's a playoff contender, but I'm not going to give them a big bump for beating a QB3 and barely beating a QB3.
Yeah.
24, I have Tampa Bay. The only reason why Tampa Bay moved up to 24 this week is because they beat Carolina, and where I had them, Carolina and Tampa Bay were really close, so I just flipped them. And Tampa Bay, yeah, they're in the playoffs. They're a shitty-ass team, which means they'll probably win the first-round game. But it's neither here nor there. 25, I have Carolina. I dropped them 3 spots. They got eliminated from the playoffs. I'm just disappointed. I thought they were going to beat Tampa Bay, and they couldn't get it done. They were up almost the entire game too.
Yeah.
Until like the last little bit, and it's frustrating.
Oh, I agree with you, man. And I think with Tampa Bay, you look at the NFC, Tampa Bay's defense could be really good if it all came together for them. And so it's, yeah, I mean, hypothetically, anything can happen with them in the playoffs. It just, this has been a really sad season for Tom Brady and company. Kind of like one of those things. It's like, when do you hang him up? Because this was a disaster. But, I'm trying to not put a ton of that on him because the offensive line was like absolute garbage. It just sucks. Just sucks. So, all right, James, for me at 21, I got the Saints. After them, I've got the Jets, then the Browns, then the Commanders, and then the Rams. And so, not a whole lot of commentary here. I did drop the Commanders down pretty far. I wanted to get them below Cleveland. It's kind of like one of the main reasons, and I just haven't had Cleveland that high on my board. Earlier in the year, I pretty much annihilated Cleveland, and then I kind of crept them back up a little bit with Deshaun Watson, but he really wasn't getting it done, so they they went back down pretty far. But it's all right. It is what it is. The team in this group that bums me out the most is the Jets. I had high hopes for them. I thought they'd make the playoffs, but the quarterback thing drug them down, man. And so it's like, you really got to be a phenomenal team to be able to do it every week without a halfway decent quarterback, and they just don't even have that, which is a bummer.
Did you hear about Mike White? So the Jets are starting Flacco this week.
Okay.
Mike White, what was it? He has 3 broken ribs.
Oh, jeez.
I'm trying to remember. I don't. I'm glancing for it, but he admitted he had like it was an odd number, so it was either 3 or 5 broken ribs.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's 3, that's crazy, but 5 is, that's just wild that you could play through that.
Yeah, I think this is an article I saw on it. Why? Yeah, I'm not seeing it at first glance. If I come,
It's all good, man. Well, I mean, hey, if you find it, let me know. Otherwise, you can roll with your 26 through 30. Or if you want, I'll do my 26 through 30 while you keep looking.
no, I'm not seeing it offhand. So, but yeah, it was some ridiculous number that he played through.
Okay.
And the previous week he went to some obscene number of specialists trying to get one to tell him it was okay for him to play.
Hey man, you got to admire his determination.
Yeah.
Um, but you also gotta say, hey, dude, don't make it worse. You could puncture a lung or have something
Yeah, see,
happen.
that's what ultimately happened. Is the reason why he stopped going to specialists was the Jets said, "Dude, I don't care if you find one to
Yeah,
tell you that if they clear you to play, you're not playing this week."
yeah, yeah. And
Anyways,
because you said that, James, I'm just gonna point this out, okay? You know what? No, I'm not. Never mind. Never mind. I'm not gonna point it out. Keep going. Go ahead.
26, I have Houston, dropped them 3 spots. They lost to Jacksonville. I'm just disappointed in them. Ironically, Houston hasn't locked up the number 1 pick overall yet, which
Huh?
is crazy
Yeah.
because
I
of the
mean, I guess
tie.
yeah. Because what? Chicago still only has 3 wins.
Yeah, it's because of the tie. Um, Houston is, let me load it real quick. They're two and Houston is 2-13. I'm sorry, 2-13-1, and Chicago is 3-13. So Houston wins, that'll give, and Chicago loses, that'll give Chicago the number 1 pick overall.
Hey, either way, you know.
20, these rest of the teams, there's not much more to say.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Rams at 27, Chicago at 28, Arizona at 29, Indianapolis at 30. All these teams are dumpster fires.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
only
why don't
two,
you just round it out, man? Give me 31 and 32 while you're at it.
31 the Vegas Raiders and 32 Denver. I mean, these are just all dumpster fire fucking teams. We have a little bit of different order. I
Yeah.
see, but it's basically each team same shit, different team.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm with you, man. Yeah, and I mean the only one that we really got different is I got Atlanta in there, but it's I got Atlanta and then I've got Vegas, Chicago, Indianapolis, Houston, Arizona, Denver. And I dropped the Raiders down a few spots from where I had them previously. And I mean I had them up there because they stayed in the playoff hunt longer than I expected, but as soon as they were out, it was like, okay, time to take him down. And honestly, man, it's just such an embarrassing year for Josh
Mm-hmm.
McDaniels. But uh, it is what it is. Yeah, all these teams, they've got trouble. Denver with Russell Wilson, man, that's a disaster situation. Arizona with Kyler Murray being out.
We missed that news
Oh,
because it was
go.
after week 16 that Hackett got fired.
Oh, oh man. I guess you and I talked about it, just not in the
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
So,
because we talked about it and we've been saying like how basically saying how long is he going to hold on? Like they should
yep.
just get rid of him, and then they finally pulled the trigger at like I think like 3 or 4 weeks too late.
Yeah. Well, I guess here, let me just looking at these teams, let me just kind of give you my quick take on each of them. So I've got Atlanta at 26. And, Atlanta, they, in my opinion, overperformed this year, even though they still didn't make the playoffs. I guess my concern with this team is that did they give Ritter enough time to really see what they have in him and enough experience where he can kind of like take that and develop going into next year? I'm not sure they did. I think they hung on to Mariota a little bit too long there, and maybe that bites him in the ass. But I don't know.
Did we talk about that with Atlanta? How basically Mariona cried, cried, and went home
Yeah, and they put him on
because
IR or whatever.
then they put him on IR because they decided to start Ritter.
I think we did talk about that one in the last show that we did. Yeah. And then the Raiders, you know, their issue, Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels, they're both just not great at what they do. Josh Jacobs at running back had a phenomenal year. They brought in Devontae Adams. They had a lot of pieces on that defense, and they just choked it up this year, man. And so, Derek Carr's out. The quarterback of the future is going to be a big thing for them. I don't know if it's Stidham, but obviously McDaniels has experience with him from the New England days. And so we'll see what happens there. Chicago, I'm like I said earlier, I'm glad that Justin Fields is out this week because don't want to see the guy get hurt or any further, I guess. But they're just it's can they have a big enough off season to even compete next year? I don't know, man. They're just so bare bones around him.
Mm-hmm.
Although Khalil Herbert, that running back, he looked great this year. Came out of nowhere. I like that. Indianapolis, this year we kept thinking that they're a quarterback away, kind of like we were saying with Denver for a few years. And then all of a sudden, their offensive line was shaky this year, and Jonathan Taylor kept getting hurt. What's his name? Shaq Leonard on defense, which is, man, the name change just bothered me that, anytime a guy changes his name, you got to wonder what's going on. But so many things happen with that team that now I really don't even know what their path is to compete next
Mm-hmm.
year. Houston, I like Houston. I love the running back that they got. I love the fight in that team. But I wonder, is Lovie Smith going to make it another year? I heard he's on the hot seat, and it's like, okay, if that's the case, what are you doing? You're going to draft a quarterback and bring in a new coach, and basically next year is like year one of a rebuild, which I'm not necessarily saying I'm against that. It just, they're in uncertain waters. Arizona, Kyler Murray obviously out. They're saying probably until November next year. Colt McCoy was benched because they were saying they benched him because they need him to start next year, is what they're saying. And so like that just tells you Arizona's in trouble. And then obviously Denver with Russell Wilson. Hackett's out, which I think is great for them because he was just that inept. But Russell Wilson, he just, I don't know, like can he recover from this? It's like we talked about this once upon a time ago with we did our Andy Dalton scale. It's like Dalton was actually a very respectable quarterback until that one year he got hurt in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
He's never been the same since. Joe Flacco was actually a very respectable quarterback, had that sweet playoff run, hurt his back, never recovered from it. He's been horrible ever since. Russell Wilson, it's like the thumb thing or whatever it was with his hand. You would have thought, oh, he'll be able to come back from that, and it's not happening. And now they're saying it's not just that, but they're saying he bulked up in the off season, intending to play more from the pocket, and it limited his mobility, which prevented him when he was getting out of the pocket this year from being what he was previously. Well, that bothers me because at his age, what are the odds that he's gonna like regain some of that speed and some of that
Mm-hmm.
shiftiness, even if he drops a couple pounds? I think there's more to it than that, and so I don't know. I think, yeah, like you said, all these teams at the bottom, they're all in the dumpster fire, man. Long-winded, long-winded. So thank you for hanging with me on that, and I'm ready when you are to move over to the game picks.
All right.
But I got to give you the season to date if we're moving over.
Okay.
All right, we're moving
I'm
over.
good to move over.
Okay, okay. All right, so James, season to date, I'll just skip the past 2 weeks. You're 149 wins, and that is good for 59%. I am at 161 wins, which is good for 63%. James, how many do you have to win this week to get to 60%? Do you know?
Mm.
We might have to play around with that because that's got to be your goal, right? Is to get into that 6 category.
Give me a second, and I can tell you.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm just curious. It just, as I was saying it, I thought, man, you're so close. I know you want that 60s. And I mean, we were both desperate to get there after the first month of the year, man.
12. 12 will get me at 60%.
12 wins? It'd be a big week, but you got 11 last week, so you never know.
Yeah, and this week because I'm down by 12, I ended up actually having to go almost every pick against my model just to give me a chance to win and pick and choose my spots for that. I could 13 of the 16 picks this week are against my model. So
And hey, we talked about it before the show. It's tough when you get to this final week of the season because a lot of teams aren't playing for anything,
mhm.
which I do like how they made it divisional every matchup because now some teams are at least going to play for pride, but a lot of them, they're benching quarterbacks, they're benching starters. They don't want to risk these guys getting hurt, and so it really makes it sort of a crapshoot on who's going to win. But we still got to make our picks, and anything could happen here, man. We got $100 bottle of whiskey on the line.
Yeah. So first up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the. These games are out of order because when we created our spreadsheet, we didn't know what the schedule was because everything was TBD, and so just start out there. We're gonna go with the order we started the season at, which first up is Tampa Bay at Atlanta. This gives me a little bit more confidence on it. This article I have open now says is predicting Atlanta to win. But
Okay.
neither team has anything to play for in this game.
No.
Atlanta's eliminated. Tampa Bay can't improve their spot. The only thing that Tampa Bay has to play for is personal for Brady, where no,
Above
because he
500.
no, because it's not above 500. It's not above 500. It's 500 or better. So that's what it is. But because he's 500 or better. If they lose, he wouldn't be above 500.
So they got to
Brady,
tie or win.
yeah, Tom Brady has never lost to the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
He is 10-0 in the regular season, 1-0 in the postseason. And that 1-0 is, what was it, 28-3 game?
Yeah.
Um, Atlanta hasn't won at Tampa Bay since 2019. They haven't, I'm sorry, Atlanta hasn't beaten Tampa Bay since 2019.
Okay.
They haven't won at home against Tampa Bay since 2018.
Gotcha.
With all that said, oh, and my model, when I modeled out, where is it? Tampa Bay. Oh, this one goes with my model. So four of my picks go with my model at least.
Okay.
I modeled it out. I have Atlanta winning 19-16,
Okay.
and I'm going with Atlanta in it.
All right. Hey, good for you. Yeah, and just full disclosure for me, I'm just picking straight off my model. I did my best to update for who's in, who's out, but the model doesn't have we're not playing for anything factor in the algorithm, and so it makes it a little bit dicey for this week, which I'm not going to go that deep on each team, but I've got Tampa Bay. I've got them winning by 3.9 points, so we'll just round it up to 4. And I'm okay with that because, Atlanta, when I look at my heat map, they're good with their running back room. Everything else, at least on paper, lights up green for Tampa Bay. And so even if Tampa Bay is playing light, I still think they got a shot of winning that game.
Next up, we have New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. Full disclosure on this, my model says Buffalo's going to win 31-16.
Okay.
Um,
But you got to pick.
but New England is fighting for the last spot. New England wins, they're in. Buffalo is. It's hard for me to say that Buffalo is going to win so much, especially I'm concerned about a hangover from what happened this past week with
It's a
them.
possibility. Yep.
Um, I think that Buff. I think I'm going to go with the Patriots just because I have to. I'm not confident in it. I can't. I can't. I can't really support it much. Besides, New England's fighting for a playoff spot, and
Yeah. I know what you mean, man. I know what you mean. I'm going Buffalo. My model's got them winning by 9. And, heat map wise, New England has a little bit of an edge on their offensive line, but the Buffalo defensive front seven's so good that it's not gonna be enough. I think that, yeah, Belichick's gonna have to coach the crap out of them because they're desperate to get in the playoffs. But I think Buffalo's got it.
all right. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. Now, if Fields was playing, I might pick this differently. I might have changed some of my picks. Um,
Who's backing up Fields? Do you know?
I
It's okay.
I
We don't
did
have to.
know it's Joe Schmuck, Nathan Peterman,
Okay.
and like I said, Joe Schmuck. If any other decent quarterback was playing this game, I would pick against Minnesota, especially the way they've been playing lately. But I'm going to stick with my model on this one and go with Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm taking Minnesota. My model's got them by 8.5. Um, you know, the heat map is all green for Minnesota. Um, I guess, James, the one thing I'm just wondering, and this is just a random question, but with these guys being only at 3 wins, do you think some of why Eberflus was saying uh, Fields is going to play is because it's a win or you're out kind of thing? Do you think they could be like, look, man, this was a disaster. If you only get 3 games, we're moving on.
Huh.
It just seems strange that they would make that kind of a comment. And now that we're looking at the records and looking at the final game, it just makes me wonder: is it like, hey, you need to redeem yourself here if you want to play or if you want to be our head coach next year? But I think it's an uphill battle with Peterman starting, so it would have been an uphill battle anyhow. And so yeah, I'm going Minnesota. I'm just you know talking out my ass here.
I I mean it could be, but I'd be surprised. Next game up, we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. So, depending on the outcome of this game, there could be a coin flip after this game. Um, Basically, Baltimore tweeted out a picture that said and quote or and captioned it, "It's on," or something like that. Baltimore Cincinnati win, or Baltimore win, Chargers win, coin flip win equals home playoff game.
Okay.
I and this is also the first time this season that Baltimore is more than the 3-point underdog, which is odd. Either way, my model says Cincinnati's going to win 24-14. But
But you're backed into a corner.
I'm backed into a corner, so I'm going to go with Baltimore.
Okay.
And say Baltimore is going to win.
I mean, hey, Huntley's actually played pretty good. Um, I don't know. I mean, my model's got Cincy by 6, and they want it bad. I'm gonna give it to them with my pick. I know that's putting pressure on you, man, but we could have 3 years in a row here. I'm winning regular season, and you could be taking playoffs. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I know. All right. So next up, we have the Sunday night game. The Lions the 8-8 Lions at Lambeau Field playing the 8-8 Green Bay Packers. Some things need to happen, and this could be a winner-take-all game. Winner goes to playoffs, loser goes home. Either way, Detroit is going to be fired the fuck up for this game.
Yeah, they better be.
I modeled it out and actually had Green Bay winning by 3.
Okay.
And I think
so is that your final model, or if you added some narrative and stuff in there, would your pick have been Green Bay, even though you're sort of like pigeonholed into picking the Lions?
So I possibly would have added the narrative in there and added in the fact that the Lions absolutely destroyed Green Bay the last time they played.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the Lions.
Okay.
And I probably would have picked against my model anyways on this one.
I gotcha. So yeah, I'm taking Green Bay. It's in Lambeau. My model has Green Bay winning by 0.8, and I think, man, my heart wants the Lions to win it, no doubt. Green Bay has been on a mini little tear here to get back in this playoff hunt, and I don't know. I can't pick Detroit. It's like I feel like I'm gonna jinx us or something. So I got to take Green Bay, and I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Next up, we have Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Didn't these two teams tie last time they played? Isn't that their tie?
Yeah, that's the tie. My model has Indy winning by 0.3, so that's pretty close to a tie.
Yeah, my model actually has Indy winning by 7.
Okay.
This is only the 6th time that Indy has been favored all season.
Okay.
The Indianapolis Colts are a dumpster fire. I think Lovie Smith is going to be coaching his ass off trying to save his job. I like what I see out of Houston better, even though my model has the Colts winning the game. I probably would have overrode my model and gone with Houston, because everything I see on it, I see it in Houston's favor.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the one part is, Indy's got Ellinger starting at quarterback again, because Foles broke those ribs or damaged his ribs on that Thibodeau hit or whatever. Yeah, I mean, both these teams are struggling. It's week 18. The model has got Indy by 0.3. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to override anything, but I'm also not going to overthink it, so I'm just taking Indy.
Next, we have the AFC South Championship game of the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is actually one where I'm picking with my model because I don't think Tennessee has a shot whatsoever in this game. They're starting Josh Dobbs. Yeah, all their players are back. You look, the league did Jacksonville no favors. Jacksonville did what they're supposed to do and played their players last week. Uh, Tennessee played Thursday night and rested all their players last week. Even though last week's game meant nothing for the standings, this game was always going to be um, after a week 16. This game was always going to be for the AFC South Championship, no matter what happened in week 17. Tennessee, their past 6 games are 0-5-1 against the spread. They're starting Joshua Dobbs at quarterback versus Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Derrick Henry is going to be there.
Maybe a little bit fresh.
Interesting stat about this game. If Trevor Lawrence throws 99 yards or more in this game, he will become only the 3rd Jacksonville Jaguar quarterback to reach 4,000 passing yards.
Good for him.
Blake Bortles in 15 and Mark Brunell in 96.
Okay.
I think Jacksonville wins this game. I have it as 1 point in Jacksonville's favor, but I think that's a little bit closer than the game actually will be.
I gotcha. Yeah, I've got Jacksonville winning by a half a point in my model, which is interesting because, if you look at my heat map, it actually seems to favor Tennessee a little bit. But, like the formula, the way it all comes together gives the edge just slightly to Jacksonville. Narrative-wise, I like Jacksonville, but, I'm not too worried about all that for tonight's purposes. I'm just sticking with the model, going with the Jags.
Next up, we have the New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Interestingly, in this game is for the lead in the all-time series between these two teams.
I'm sorry, say that again?
For the all-time series, like regular season series between these two teams, they've played 113 games.
Mm-hmm.
The record is 56-56-1.
Holy cow.
56-56-1. Miami has lost 5 straight games. Miami's favored in this game, but I think the Jets are.
They're going to want to wreck them.
Miami's starting Skylar Thompson, and the Jets are starting Joe Flacco. I mean, how quick are we going to turn off this game? What's this game going to be? 3-3, 4-3?
I mean, hey, the Jets' defense might put a good performance on the field. I do like watching good defense.
If Miami loses, which I think they are going to lose to the Jets, and I'm picking the Jets, my model has the Jets winning this game as well.
Okay.
This will be the first time in franchise history that they will have 6 straight losses.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the end of the season or if that's 6 straight losses overall, but that's...
At any point. Yeah, I don't know. I remember the Dolphins, they had a rough run there for a while. It might have been going back to when, like, Dan Campbell got that interim head coaching job before that, but I don't know if it was like consecutive losses like that led to that. But that's all right. I've got the Dolphins winning this one by 2.5. They're fighting for a playoff spot still. So, the Jets would like to rain on that parade, but I'm going to stick with the model here and go with the Dolphins.
Next up, we have the Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. So my model has New Orleans winning. Just say that up front. I don't think Dennis Allen knows what the fuck he's doing. As offensively, I just there's something wrong with Norris. Yeah, they beat Philly. Philly had a backup quarterback. Yeah, they're playing. Who's even starting for Carolina? Sam Darnold again.
I gotta believe it's Darnold, yeah. Unless they're gonna put him on the shelf, save him for next year.
I don't know. I think
PJ Walker.
I think Wilkes is. I think a win over New Orleans will go a long way for Wilkes to save his or to get the
full-time head coach
full-time head coaching job. So I'm going to go with this. I would have switched to Carolina in this game as it was,
Okay.
but I'm kind of one of the games I'm kind of forced to switch to.
I got you. Well, I'm going to take New Orleans. My model's got them winning by 4. Very unpredictable team this year. Carolina, they've been a lot stronger with Wilkes calling all the shots. And even though I'm picking New Orleans to win, I do hope Wilkes gets that head coaching job. And if they don't want him, I hope somebody else does get him. Maybe Denver, I don't know. But the guy deserves a shot, man. And I do believe he got a raw deal in Arizona, man. They pulled the plug on him way too fast. But yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
Next up, we have the Giants at the Eagles, and I'm going to say outright, I would not have picked this way if it weren't for being back into a corner.
Okay. Broken record.
Who would have thought going into a number of weeks ago, who would have thought that Philadelphia would have something to play for in this game and the Giants don't? The Giants are firmly locked into the 6th seed. They can't move up, they can't move down, no matter what happens in this game.
I like how you broke that down with the Giants.
Hurts is looking like he's going to play. I think the Giants want to try to wreck Philly's day and beat the shit out of them. So I think they're going to play their starters, at least for the first half. I'm not 100% certain that Hurts is going to be playing in this game. Anyways, I think they're going to save him for the postseason.
Yeah, it could be a smoke screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go with the Giants begrudgingly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Philly. My model's got them by 8.5. They want this win. They want that number 1 seed. I think if Hurts is ready to go, he's going to play. And I like that you called out the Giants. It really doesn't help them or hurt them one way or another, which is, that's good to point out.
All right. So next up we have. So apparently I miscounted the games that I was going against my model on, because this pick is who I had winning this game. It's the Browns at the Steelers.
Okay.
The Steelers have an outside shot at making the playoffs. They need to win and need Miami and New England to lose. And I think that Pittsburgh wins this game, especially with how poorly Deshaun Watson has been playing so far this year. Kenny Pickett's been clutch for them, and Mike Tomlin always figures out a way to be above 500. So I'm firmly on the Steelers.
Yeah, no, I like your assessment there. My model's got Cleveland by 0.5 point, so I'm sticking to the model. If I was going to override, this would probably be like the one game I would override, because I have a lot of faith in Tomlin just the fact that he even got him in this position, you got to give the guy a pat on the back. And so I like what you're doing, but yeah, my pick's with the Browns.
Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. I think Washington's going to do what they can even with Sam Howell playing at quarterback, there's no film on him. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises from him in this game, and I think Dallas is not going to know how to defend him, and that's going to cause problems.
Okay.
My model has Dallas winning pretty handily. I think there's a solid shot that Washington wants to ruin Dallas's day, because if Philly loses and Dallas wins the NFC East and they get the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Possibly can be elevated to the number 1 seed depending. I think Dallas plays down to their competition.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
And Prescott is Dak Prescott. He's consistently inconsistent. So I'm going to go with the Commanders in that game.
Yeah, I like the way you put that they play down to their opponents, because, yeah, you would think with, how dominant their defense was earlier in the year and supposedly how electric that offense is with Dak and CeeDee Lamb, you don't ever see them just burying teams, I mean, I'm glad you said that. But my model's got Dallas by 4.5, which I'm surprised it's that tight, to be honest. I think Washington's offense could be non-existent potentially with this rookie quarterback. Dallas obviously has a lot on the line, so they're going to want to get the win. And so I'm comfortable taking Dallas here, man.
All right. Next up, we have Chargers at the Broncos. The only thing to talk about in this game is Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Justin Herbert, he currently already has the most passing yards through their first 3 seasons as anybody in NFL history.
Yeah,
at 13,816. He's just going to extend that, and extend that and extend that in this game. It's going to be such a bloodbath that I don't see Herbert playing the second half. That's how far ahead they're going to be. Going to be leading. And Chargers, they want the 5 seed. They don't want the 6 seed. And simply because of the fact that you get the 5 seed, you play Jacksonville or Tennessee, versus you get the 6 seed and you have to play Cincinnati or Buffalo.
Yeah, you go big time right out the gate.
Yeah. And I think it starts out as a beatdown. The Broncos get it a little bit closer, but I don't foresee Herbert playing into the second half in this game, and the Chargers just beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark, is how much Herbert plays. I've got the Chargers by 8.5 in my model. If Denver puts up a fight like they did with Kansas City last week, it makes you wonder what's going to happen here, because you don't want to risk any more guys getting hurt with the Chargers. But at the same time, that seeding is going to be very important in determining their playoff path and how hard it is. On the one hand, it's almost like, yeah, hey, go after a big dog right off the gate, man. And if you win it, you got the momentum to just ride it out from there. But, it's also, this team is not playoff proven. So, the prudent thing is to get the better seed and have the better matchup. So I'm with the Chargers.
Next up, we have Saturday afternoon, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. The de facto game for the number 1 seed based on everything that's going on. I really think Vegas has a shot in this game, so I possibly would have overrode my model anyways on it. First of all, the spreads for Kansas City are way too fucking high. For some reason, Kansas City is like 4-8 against the spread with Mahomes in the last 12 games, and against the spread they've lost 5 straight, which is ridiculous. Thing to watch out for in this game is Travis Kelce needs one receiving touchdown to become the first tight end in NFL history to have 10,000 receiving yards and 70 receiving TDs in their first 10 seasons.
Oh, gotcha. So he's going to want it.
I think he's going to want it. I think I'm going to go with Vegas just because I think there's a chance that Kansas City screws this up like they seem to have wanted to a lot recently.
I got you. Yeah, my model's got KC at 11, and so I'm taking them even though it's at Las Vegas. You know, I think that they know that there's enough at stake here to not be messing around, and so I'm sticking with them.
Next up, we have the Rams at the Seahawks. Seahawks, outside of the Jets game, have been playing pretty shitty lately. They started out great and fell back down to earth. This is the Bobby Wagner revenge game.
I didn't even think about that. I'm glad you mentioned that.
He needs 10 tackles in this game to break the single season record for tackles in Rams history.
Wow. I didn't know he was that close. And I know it's for Rams history, but still,
he has 132 tackles this year.
Shit. I mean, you know, historically been a tackling machine. I guess
133 tackles this year. I think, and I really hope my picks happen in this sense, I think the Rams actually do pull off the minor upset in Seattle and make the Sunday night game a true winner-take-all game with the Lions winning that game and the Lions make the fucking playoffs.
That would be pretty wild, man. It would be exciting. Yeah. I like where your head's at. James, I'm going Seattle. My model's got them winning by 6. Even though the Rams have had some surprise wins since bringing in Baker Mayfield, I think the Seahawks are more poised and healthy. The Rams have been hobbled for a long time now with so many guys out, and it just I got to take the Seahawks, man.
All right, the one I'm really shaky on, is the Cardinals at the 49ers. Theoretically, the 49ers could get the number 1 seed. And David Blau is starting for Arizona. Also, this might be AJ Green's last game. He's kind of been mum on the retirement. It is JJ Watt's last game.
Yep.
They are currently on the 49ers are currently on a 9-game winning streak.
Man. Hard asses.
I unfortunately have to go with the Cardinals in this game. Which also, by having the San Francisco lose and Minnesota win, and Detroit win and Seattle lose, that means Detroit plays Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs.
That would be sweet.
Yeah, because based on all my picks, I mapped it out.
Oh, see, you're way ahead of me, man.
I mapped it out based on my picks. Kansas City's the number 1 seed in the AFC. Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Chargers, Ravens, New England.
Okay.
NFC, Philadelphia, Minnesota, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Dallas, Giants, Lions.
That'd be pretty cool, my friend. Be pretty cool.
Will it happen? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, well, we'll find out soon. All right, so yeah, James, I'm going with San Francisco. My model's got them by 10. You know, honestly, I missed one on my heat map. Nuke is going to be out, and if I take him out, it gives the entire heat map to San Francisco, which just supports the model even further. And so, don't need to break it down much more than that, man. Yeah, so those are the picks. Those are the picks. May the best man win here, James.
Yeah, the best man's probably going to lose, but.
Hey, just, just have some respect here, man. Or not. That's okay. Well, you ready for question of the week?
I am.
Okay. I told you I wanted to keep talking about Derek Carr. It's pretty simple. With him all but being guaranteed to be released by the Raiders, let's just do a little bit of where do you think he's going to end up next year?
New York
And
Jets.
I mean, I got a list of teams that hypothetically may be in the quarterback market, not in any particular order, some more than others, maybe none of them, but my list, like it or not, I've got the Giants, the Colts, the Texans, the Panthers, the Saints, the Patriots, the Buccaneers, and the Commanders. And I know you can say some teams like the Giants going to hang on to Daniel Jones, and the Patriots, well, they got to keep trying with Mac Jones. I got him on here because I wanted to have as big of a list as I could, and then kind of whittle it down from there. We already sort of like jokingly talked over Facebook about, well, the Colts, it just makes sense, they got to get their next veteran guy to come in and save this team. And so,
run that list again real quick.
What's that?
Run that list again.
Sure. So I got the Giants, the Colts, the Texans, the Panthers, the Saints, the Patriots, the Buccaneers, and the Commanders. And I mean, you could pull up our power rankings to see all 32 and just kind of yes or no them, if they're even in the picture. I mean, I guess, it just however you would want to do it. But out of that list, man, honestly, I don't know, dude. It makes me wonder if he's going to end up being a backup somewhere. It really makes me wonder because, the Giants, with the way Daniel Jones has played and just grooved with Dable, probably they're hanging on to him. The Colts, I'm wondering if they're going to say, hey, listen, we are at 2 strikes. We don't want to have a third. Houston seems like they're primed to draft a guy. Carolina, I don't know if whether it's Wilkes or whoever else would hang on to Darnold, but it seems like you would be arguing about whether or not that's a good thing and would Carr make it a better thing? I don't know. New Orleans, Winston and Dalton, not great, but how much of an improvement is Carr? I don't know. The Patriots, yeah, you can make that argument that Mac Jones is the guy, and they totally revamped that offense. It was a mess this year. Maybe they give him one more year to sort it out. Tampa Bay, it looks like Brady's out, is everything I'm hearing. And if that's the case, maybe Tampa Bay ends up being like the best bet for him just because they're going to have a later draft pick. And I don't know who else quarterback wise is going to be in the market. The Commanders, I don't see them doing it. They swung and missed on Wentz. I think they want to see Heineke take a step up, or they're going to go out and make a move somehow for another guy. But, just kind of my commentary here, man. What are you thinking?
All right, first thing to remember in this whole scenario is Carr has a no trade clause. So
Correct. Yeah.
any trade has to be approved by him.
Yeah, I'm just assuming he's going to be released. But yeah, that's good to point out.
A couple things. There's two teams that stick out on that entire list to me. The first team that sticks out are the Texans. There's been chatter that sometime around the draft he had talked about how he wanted to be drafted by the Texans and redeem the Carr name with the Texans and some shit like that.
Okay.
The other team that sticks out are the Saints. Dennis Allen was the coach that drafted him.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
They're not going to do the Winston, whoever the fuck the other guy is.
Dalton.
Is it Dalton still? I forget. They're not going to do the Winston Dalton experience. Taysom Hill's not the future.
No.
So I think those are, of all the teams, those are the two teams that have a shot. The Pats, I don't see him going to New England at all. I don't see him going to Tampa Bay. I think there's other issues with Tampa Bay that cause that hesitation. I think Rivera is going to want to. Washington's going to want to draft somebody and get a younger guy, and not do this veteran thing because they too have struck out with veterans.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I guess they got Sam Howell. They're hoping that they'll maybe see something in him in this final week, but that's a tough one. It's like had they maybe had a little bit of the crystal ball going, I would like to believe they would have gotten him playing time sooner, but they kind of screwed the pooch on their playoff chances, and they are here now, so it is what it is.
The Giants are an interesting one to me, but here's one thing about the Giants. Well, let me go to the Colts first. Colts, they're not going to do this quarterback veteran thing. And the Panthers, I think the Panthers are going to go with, they drafted, who did they draft? And he was hurt this year.
Oh, yeah. They drafted Matt Corral.
Yeah. So I think they're looking at as Corral as their future, so they're not gonna sign Carr. They might roll with Sam Darnold again or something like that. The Giants, the reason why I jokingly said the Jets out of reflux. Jets and the Giants. The issue with the Jets and the Giants is both those teams play in cold weather.
Yeah.
And Carr has struggled in cold weather games in his career. So that leaves a team that's a dome team or a team that plays a lot of dome teams in December. And that's the Texans and the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I guess another team to add on the list potentially, if Ritter's looking that bad, do you go Atlanta? Because it looks like they're done with Mariota.
Well, they're done with Mariota. And, I don't think Ritter's looking as bad as we're saying or we're hearing. I think he has some promise and he's going to have some growing pains. But
yeah, he's a rookie,
He's a rookie. And Atlanta has so many other issues besides the quarterback that I don't think Carr would be an upgrade from Ritter with the offensive line issues and the defensive issues that Atlanta has.
Okay. Well, hey, we'll talk more about it in the coming weeks because this thing's going to happen fast is what it looks like. At least the release, where it goes from there, who knows? But, he is on the outs. So, yeah, anybody who's watching, just name that stadium, hit us up, let us know your thoughts. James, you got any closing thoughts, man?
No, I think I hit all of them.
All right, so yeah, I'll have to look at what we're doing for next week. Did we do a final power rankings at the end of the last couple seasons? I don't remember, but I mean, we gotta.
I think we did.
Okay,
I don't remember either.
I'll go back and check. We'll make sure we're on the same page and have a good game plan for it.
And then we'll have to figure out our playoff thing.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, cool. Well, hey man, James, like always, it was fun, man. Anybody who was watching, hope you liked the show. If you did, give us that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, all that kind of jazz. We will catch you later.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut, hut, hike.